Welcome to 3 mistakes sellers make that cause them to lose money when selling a dental practice. I'm thrilled to be here with my friends and sponsors from DDSmatch, trusted resources in the transition process. You're going to learn so many things tonight, and you may want to rewatch this again. So if you're watching now and you want the recording of this, just text broker to 215-543-6454. Text broker to 215-543-6454. So I am Paul, Dr. Nacho Goodman, failed NBA superstar, owner of 2 dental practices, founder of Dental Nachos and Dentist Job Connect, a Nachos sponsor. And I made a $50,000 mistake, at least a $50,000 mistake, by working with the wrong broker. I know my dentist people, they love to learn about when things go wrong. So I'm going to share a video here that's incredibly valuable. Because if you do not want to lose $50,000 like me, there were no Dental Nachos back then. There were no podcasts. It was just me and a Hotmail account. I didn't have access to all of this information. But you can avoid at least a $50,000 mistake by making sure you do not do this. Imagine making a $30,000 mistake when buying a dental practice. Imagine not knowing what questions to ask or how to build a team when making the most important decision of your dental life. My name is Dr. Paul Goodman, Dr. Nacho, and I don't have to imagine that because I made those mistakes in 2011. I didn't know what questions to ask when buying a dental practice. I didn't know working with a dual representation broker is nacho nuts. A dual representation broker claims to be able to represent your interest and the interest of the selling dentist at the same time. So if you only listen to this much, just know that working with a dual representation broker can burn your nachos in making the most important decision of your dental life. My goal as Dr. Paul Goodman, Dr. Nacho, is to help you with the 4 most important decisions you will make in your entire dentisting career, or what I call the circle of dentisting life. Finding your first job, buying your first practice, hiring your first associate, and selling your only practice. Dental school teaches us a lot about the Krebs cycle and how to make a mediocre bite rim, but not enough about our dentisting core. What is our dentisting core? The decisions we make with our mind. So there it is. Working with a dual representation broker is nacho nuts. I did not know any better. I didn't know what questions to ask. I regret it. I wish I didn't do it. My good friend, Rob Montgomery, dental focused attorney, said a dual representation broker is like saying your favorite team is the Philadelphia Eagles and your second favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. And everyone knows that's weird. I gave a lecture in Ohio and they said it's like liking Ohio State and Michigan at the same time. That may hit too close to home for some of you here. So make sure that the people on your side have your best interest in mind. If you'd like to make sure you do not make a mistake like this, I want to make sure that you can work with the right team. Text broker to 215-543-6454. Now I'm thrilled to welcome my friends and sponsors to Dental Nachos TV. They can unmute themselves. They can start their videos as we bring them up here. They're an awesome team. They're here to help you smile more and cry less. Smile more and cry less. Just going to give them a minute, just introduce themselves and say where they work, what they do, what region they're in. And I'm going to start with you, Thad.
Yeah, I'm Thad Miller. I cover Indiana and Louisville, Kentucky. I'm also the founder of DDSmatch, started 15 years ago. We've been doing this for consistently 15 years, and it's been a great journey. I've got a great team.
Awesome. You guys are awesome. Thanks, Thad. Bill, we'll let you go next.
Bill Coates, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. I started this with my partner Joe and Kevin back in 2018.
Awesome, Bill. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Rex, you can go next for it with us. I have a joke about pizza when you're done.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Rex Plamann, partner at DDSmatch Chicago. Been in the dental industry 30 years, covering all of Chicagoland, Northern Illinois, handling those practice transitions. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I was in Chicago recently, and we had to go for deep dish pizza because my team member tried it. They served me something. It wasn't pizza. Okay, it wasn't pizza. I don't know what it was, but I'm not used to that style over here on the East Coast.
Very good. Glad you got out there.
Yeah. Steve, we'll let you finish us off.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Steve Hipson. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I work Dallas Fort Worth and all of North Texas. This is my 10th year as a DDS Match franchise owner, and couldn't be more proud of everything that we do. Thank you for having me on.
I want to keep it on positive. Are you a Cowboys fan, Steve? Texans fan? Which one?
Well, it's interesting with your Cowboys and Eagles scenario here. We got Bill in Philly and Steve in Dallas, so I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but yeah, we're still chugging down here.
All right, good. You always stay positive. So I'm a big fan of the one thing, and I am a dentist. And what do I wish people knew about their teeth? If I could just educate people about this one thing, I would tell them if you are above the age of 40 and you get your teeth cleaned 3 times a year instead of 2 times a year, you will keep your teeth longer, you will avoid expensive dental problems, and you'll be really, really happy that you brought your mouth in for maintenance just like your car. And I wish in a totally agenda-free way that people took better care of their teeth and knew that. So if you're listening, you're above the age of 40, maybe you want to make that extra hygiene appointment. Now we're here to talk about dental practices. So I want to ask these brokers who deal with dentists every day, what's one thing they wish that sellers knew about selling their dental, or practice owners knew, not even say practice, about selling their dental practice. So Thad, we'll start with you.
Well, I read a book once and on this topic, not just on selling a dental practice, but just on selling a business. And there was a line that I add to all my presentations, and it's the more you care about what happens after the sale, the more cautious you need to be, and the more time it'll take.
Love it.
So that's a big thing that I think that's most important is to plan ahead.
I'll add some value along the way, maybe some humor. When you sell a house, you don't live in it with the new people, right? I said that last one. You don't live in it with the new people who buy your house. And if you did, it would be a much different transaction. As we'll find out throughout the show, that the selling dentist is at times and living in their practice house with the new person. So they need to figure it out. So I love that, Thad. Great one. Steve, I'll ask you next.
Thank you. One thing I wish that practice owners knew is that if they stay in their practice and the practice starts to decline, if the revenue starts to decline, if they start referring more procedures out, if they take more days off and reduce their schedule, the value of the practice when it comes time to sell it is greatly reduced as well.
Yeah.
It's important to keep the practice keep the pedal down, keep pressing. And when you get tired, which we all do, that's when it's time to talk to a professional broker at DDS Match.
Love that. Yeah. Not enough dentists realize that. Not enough dentists realize I've, done what you guys do, that the fixer-upper small practice can come with so many different challenges out there. So I like that a lot, Steve. Rex, we'll go with you next.
I'll go with the importance of keeping confidentiality as a key piece in the cog here. Too many times I've seen that breach by the owner, and it really stings them. People fear change, and so the staff hears that their owner is going to be selling the practice, and instead of sitting through it all and just kind of waiting to see what it brings, they fear the change, and the fear brings about flight. And even the most loyal employees might leave you at a bad time there.
I also think, I've said this a numerous times in the podcast, great ones, that, LOI, letter of intent. I would never, tell my children we might be going to Disney World, because they'd be asking every day if we're going to Disney World. And it would be almost nearly impossible to get out of going to Disney World. So I, concur with what you're saying, Rex. And also as a practice owner myself, if someone knows Troy, they might say, is today the day? Is the buyer here today? And they might not know the length of time for that transition. So I am on board with that one. Now, Bill is back. So we've shared some great tips here, Bill. He might be having some Zoom issues. We might get his one thing here in just a second. We see him back. Well, he's back. So great one things. We've talked about caring what happens after the sale, being more cautious, keeping the pedal to the metal, not letting it decline, confidentiality. Bill, what's your one thing that you wish practice owners knew about selling their dental practice?
It's a good question, Paul. I think I'd probably say that, the market is constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah.
So I think that owners have more options than they're actually aware that they have, if they just give themselves enough runway or enough time from the start to the finish. And more often than not, I'd say majority of the deals that we're involved in, practice owners call us when they're ready to exit not when they're ready to start the process. Two very different things.
I love that. I also share that, some of the myths that I totally understand dentists might have is they'll say to me on, Facebook, "Hey, Paul, I have a practice that has 1.5 million, but no young dentist will be able to afford it." And I say, guess what? These banks are like our moms. They believe in us no matter what. So even though these young dentists have $500,000 in debt, there are banks lining up to give them an additional $1.5 million. And I just like to share this. That I believe is one of the biggest myths out there. And we have some dentist over the age of 40 watching in, whether it's in online, on demand, or here with us live. So great ones, guys. So we're going to go through some questions. If people are here, you are the most important person here. So ask your question in the chat. You also can send it to the panelists anonymously. But these are some mistakes that I have shared that sellers make. They're ones that I've learned from you guys as well, as waiting too long and having a problematic deadline to sell. When I was a transitions broker, sellers would call me up and say, "I want to sell my practice." I say, "Great. When do you want to be done?" The worst answer was yesterday. The second worst answer was, "I'm moving across the country in 4 months." So I think problematic deadline to sell, not paying attention to your fee schedule and PPO reimbursement. If you're watching in now, there's a lot of negative things. You guys aren't dentists. Maybe we can go send you to dentist fantasy camp where you can feel what it's like to do a filling on someone who refuses to open and is mad that they're there. Okay, so maybe we can get you that experience, Steve Hipson. But one of the best experiences I had was we negotiated our insurance fees and they were giving me more money for the exact same amount of work. More money for the exact same amount of work. Only thing better would be taking calories out of my food. So we actually have an awesome sponsor team here. So if you text PPO to 215-543-6454, whether you just bought your practice yesterday or have had it for 30 years, I highly recommend you looking into your PPO fees so that you can potentially make more money for the same amount of work. And not enough new patients. I am a dentist. I still look at dental practices. If any of you four amazing people told me about these dental practices, I would care about how many new patients were coming in, right? I would care about how many new patients are coming in. It would be a thing that's part emotional, part statistical. So before we go to our questions, Thad, what do you think of my three list here? Agree, disagree? Which one do you think is most important?
I agree. I mean, I would say that, waiting too long is definitely the most important. I mean, our goal is to find options for our clients. We only represent the seller, as you were talking earlier about dual representation. We don't represent the buyer. Now, we have more buyers than any other company looking at practices across the country. But our job is to find the match. I mean, that's why we're DDS Match. So you hire us to go find options for you, and it can be in a lot of different ways. And that's what's great about being in dentistry as a business owner or a aspiring business owner, aspiring practice owner, is you've got a lot of options. So we like to give options to our clients so they can pick the person, a lot of times we say a younger version of them, and so carry on that legacy, that process, that what they do for their community and for their patients, that can carry on.
Love that. Steve, what do you think about my thoughts on new patients? Is that a common question you get from buyers? Do you ask sellers about it? Give some context on the new patient part of the sale.
Yeah, number 3 is a good one, Paul. It goes back to what I said in the opening comments about taking your foot off the gas. A lot of dentists stop marketing. They stop getting new patients. They stop recruiting. So because they're tired, because they don't feel like they want to do it anymore. But that's when it's time to talk to us. So it's critically important to continue to market, to continue to have a new patient base coming in. And that's something that a lot of dentists getting ready to retire, getting ready to think about selling, have stopped doing. And it's a terrible strategy. Absolutely.
I want to share something before I ask Rex and Bill this. So I get a lot of interesting DMs on social media, some nice, some not so nice, some angry, some complaining. It's wild being me. But someone DM'd me and said, "Paul, you were right." I said, "Oh, I'm stopping for this one. Tell me more, dentist from the internet." He goes, "I did exactly what you said." Okay. And what I had said to him was, he goes, "I'm having trouble with my associate contract. People aren't signing." I said, "You know what? Make a contract that you would want to sign yourself. Make a contract with your dental focus attorney that you would like to sign yourself." And he said it worked. And Steve, what you said is you want someone like a younger version of you to want the practice. And when I was 8 years old, I was removing wallpaper from our guest bathroom because we were selling our house. And I said to my mom, why are we doing this? We're selling the house. She goes, because we want the people looking at the house to think it's really nice. And I think that a lot of that can happen with practice sales. If you need to kick delivery unit 3, 4 times to get it started, maybe you want to make sure it's nice for the new buyer. Bill, how about number 2 with paying attention to fee schedules, PPO reimbursements? Anything you want to add on that one?
Yeah, Paul, I mean, look, certainly that contributes to the overall profitability of the practice. I think, for a practice owner that's not constantly reevaluating their fees year over year, um, perhaps that's an opportunity for a buyer, maybe, but it could also contribute to a lower purchase price. So I think, yeah, I think that is a mistake that some sellers get caught in that trap of, I don't want to, upset patients and raise fees.
Yeah, I like that. And Rex, you could say any of the 3 or add one or reinforce anything before we go on to our question round.
Yeah, I was just going to add with new patients, if you can't show that you've got new patients coming in, there's no guarantee that the buyer is going to find new patients as well. And they're going to know that basic stats are, 80% of the patient base is within 10 years of the owner. If the owner is 70 years old, then they know they've got a declining base of patients that they're going to be grabbing onto in that sale. So you got to show them new patients are going to be available in the area.
And whether it's an associate, I like that, Rex. Whether it's an associate dentist or a new, practice owner who bought it, what's nice about new patients is they don't know the old dentist, and it's just a nice experience to be able to have an experience with new patients. Because we've done a number of acquisitions. Some came with the dentist, some didn't come with the dentist, but we did a chart acquisition once, and patients will say, I've never had a crown in my mouth. Old Doc T never recommended a crown, and they open up and they got 6 crowns in their mouth, right? 6 crowns. And you're in that moment of having to call either them a liar or something. So I just think that's really nice to have more new patients. So we've had some great questions that we're going to talk about. We're going to just kind of toss these around. I'll kind of cue you in. So these are questions you get asked as a practice broker. And the number one that's probably most popular, Thad, will go to you, is kind of like, what's my practice worth? How much is it? I call you up. I say, I've had enough, Thad. I want to sell this practice. I do 1.7 million. What's it worth? What's it worth? Tell me the price. Tell me the exact price. So how do you answer those questions?
Yeah, one thing that's unique about DDSmatch is I am a business broker. Okay, that would be my title. You're a dentist, I'm a business broker. We're really not qualified to value a business. Our job is to find buyers, to work the process to help our clients. But, a lot of this, I always say that, if anybody can throw a number on something and try and get it, like selling a used car. The way we do it is we have a CPA firm. It's a top 50 CPA firm. Actually, they're a top 20 healthcare firm in the country, Blue and Company. They value the businesses that we represent. So it gives a good third-party look at what the practice value is once we get started in the process. And it really, sets a trusted number that a buyer can look at. And as you were saying earlier, they can go to the bank and get the funds. One of the reasons they can is the dentists are an incredible low risk to a bank. They're mostly successful. There's very fewest amount of defaults of any profession in America. And having this third-party business valuation is almost like their business plan they're taking to the bank to finance a practice if that's the one they really want. So we provide that to our buyers, and that we feel like that raises a lot of trust in the process.
I love that. As someone who's done that, it manages expectations, right? That's the case. There's a patient walking into a dental office tomorrow saying, I'd like to finish my dental implant by the end of the year, and it hasn't been placed yet. Just to cue you guys in, you place an implant, it heals for 3 months, then you put a crown on it. So we have to remanage their expectations, say, I know you want to get this done by December 31st for your insurance, but it's just not possible. It's similar things here where you can manage expectations on both sides. I mean, I'll ask you, Rex, how does this independent valuation help throughout the process when things could potentially get emotional between the buyer and the seller? It's worth more, it's worth less. Somebody told me this, I saw online this. How does that help?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what Thad was saying about having that third party that's completely qualified, and they're right there at our side. We can utilize them at any point in time in the process to help validate the numbers that we've come through for the practice value. or the price for the marketplace. And that's where I really see the buyers sort of opening up, and you can feel the trust level sort of be raised inside them, knowing that we've got this third-party valuation working for us all.
And one thing I'll add before I ask, Bill and Steve the next questions is, I didn't realize this when I was buying multiple practices early on, but you want the practice to be authentically or responsibly worth as much as possible. It's not like, so I mean, I thought there was probably more of a negotiation thing to it than in reality, where you want it to have strong numbers. You want to pay a reasonable price for a practice, because then it's worth more to you. So I'm with you. Now, Bill, someone's going to sell their practice in our place, New Jersey or PA, and they say, I want to go with you, but how do you find buyers? How do you find these dentists? They don't have any money. They have too much debt. They don't want to buy practices. All want to work for a DSO. Nobody wants to buy a practice. I'm sure we're very good with negativity, dentists. It's our love language, okay? Our love language is negativity, okay? So tell us how you find buyers as a broker.
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul. For us, I mean, at least here in the Philadelphia market, it's a layered approach, right? So Thad had built this awesome website, DDSmatch.com is typically the starting point. So that's where a lot of buyers will go and visit our website and see opportunities that are currently listed. Outside of that, the three of us locally are marketing opportunities to a pretty big database that we have built over the years, right? So we'll do either newsletters or email campaigns. We also, for instance, last night we spoke at the 5th District Dental Society out in Chambersburg, PA. So, like a 7:30 meeting last night, and drove out there and presented to them. So we'll do dental society study clubs. Often we'll get in front of some of the schools and the residents. And then social media, right? So dental nachos, there's a lot of different ways that we find buyers, but there's just a few to name.
Yes, I like to use classic connections by meeting people face to face, and then the power of online. Steve, I kind of want to ask you, I know we're mainly talking to sellers at this point, but I see buyers in this Zoom audience, and there'll be ones watching in. Just kind of tell us, you're working with buyers. Are there ones reaching out to you saying, hey, Steve, if you find a good practice, let me know right away. I want to be first in line. Hey, Steve, I like my job, but I don't want to be an associate forever. So even though there might be a practice owner who's upset that their associate says, hey, guess what? I just bought a practice. Are you connecting with buyers like that, where their goals and maybe no one else knows them?
Absolutely. We get calls, texts, emails every day. And one of the things that we do best is we have a very robust website. Okay. Every time we get a call, an email, a text, we drive them to our website. We have them complete their free confidential online registration. They can sign the electronic non-disclosure agreement, and this gives them access to all current listings and all future listings. We're coast to coast now. We've got 47 brokers covering every state. We're getting people roaming around this country all the time. So I get calls from my colleague in California and says, Steve, I got a dentist who wants to come to Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm going to connect him with you. So our network has broadened immensely. But one other thing I want to add to that is, when we're not talking to sellers, when we're not talking to buyers, we're talking to people who are talking to buyers and sellers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is our robust network is really how we've really expanded. And who are those people? Those are CPAs, those are attorneys, those are other brokers, those are the dental equipment people and reps. We're talking every day to people that talk to dentists every day, and we're getting those people. Dentists are either going to start a practice or they're going to buy a practice. So your relationship with your lenders, your relationship with your dental specific reps is critical to the success of feeding this pipeline for us.
Yeah, awesome points. And kind of, laid up my next point, and I'm a big fan of basketball, right? You need a team of people helping you, Rex, just so that we are responsible in sharing this information, might be watched many times. I'm a selling dentist. Do I need an attorney? Should I connect with attorney? How does attorney fit into the process? Can't you just do it all, right? People say to us, you guys have so many good tools to talk to dentists. They look at us and go, can't you just take out my impacted wisdom teeth? I'm like, no, it's not what I do every day. Can't you just do this second molar endo? No, it's not what I do every day. But I'm sure you have dentists turn to you and say, can't you just do it all? Rex, tell us kind of the attorney role in this process.
I suppose back in the day, a dentist could have a revolver by his side
to
protect himself after the sale. But now there's so much liability, and there's so many things to be really worried about post sale that could affect you in some way, shape, or form financially. You need an attorney that knows all the P's and Q's and dots the I's and crosses the T's to minimize your liability post sale. And I just don't think you could do an effective job of that on your own.
Yeah.
And it's a complex world today, and unfortunately, I think we definitely need attorneys, not only just attorneys for the seller, but the buyer as well, of course, too, to protect themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, also, and I want to encourage anyone who has taken the time to be here. I see all these people in the audience. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. You can do it to everyone. If it's an anonymous question or private question, send it to the host and panelist. I mean, these are once things, right? Most dentists are selling their practice once in their entire life, and you don't want to mess up your once thing. And, you know, whether it's just a cliche of the devil being in the details, whether it's a post-sale employment contract or a partnership with a DSO or something in your lease, you want people looking at. So I like this. Now, second to the price, I think this probably has got to be Family Feud #2. How long does it take? So Thad, I want to sell my practice. Please tell me exactly how long it takes to the day, please. They can't get due dates for babies right, but you can get this right for your seller. So how do you manage expectations? How long does it take?
Well, there's two sides of this. I would say, because you got to, in our process, we call it the trusted transition process. Our whole team uses the same process. The first step is the conceptual transition experience. So we're trying to kind of put them ahead into the future. Like, when you're walking out of here, what does this look like to you? How does this play out? So I think I think our sellers need to think about 2 years from now, because once we get started, once we work through the process, we find a buyer, we have to negotiate, we have to get the financing in line. They're going to purchase the practice. They're probably going to want the seller to live in that house, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I like to say, you got to call us at least 2 years in advance of when you see yourself not doing dentistry anymore. And I like that 2 year window, I think is critical. Further than that is great. And we're always available really at no charge for a call like, hey, what do I do here? I got a call the other day from a dentist who is considering hiring me in the next 2 years. And she got approached by somebody to buy her building. And she's like, what do I do? I got an offer to buy my building. What's that going to do to my practice? What if they're not a dentist? I'll answer that question. I'm not going to send her a bill for my time. So we're always available in our respective markets for any small question as we go, because ideally we want you to make the right decisions as a seller before you even list it, because then we have a broader base of buyers for you.
I love this. You made me think of another golden Dr. Nacho tip. Ask people who do stuff every day for something you're only going to do once, right? Ask people who are doing this because they have the context of the everything. And it's easy to just make a wrong decision that can cause you a big problem. And I mean, I'm going to ask Bill about his timeline in a second here for what he tells people, but I'll share. And someone, I was a dentist, I still am a dentist, but I became a transitions broker, very different process than becoming a dentist, right? And I was learning, and I just learned it was longer than I thought as a dentist, right? And I was a dentist from 2002 to 2016, worked with transitions, and I was like, man, this takes longer than I ever thought it would as a dentist. I didn't know all the things that had to happen to go from listing a practice to having it closed. So I hope selling dentists here are thinking it takes longer than you think. And weird stuff happens. I was going to buy a practice. There's a major problem with the real estate, and I just checked out, right? And that seller had to go to a backup buyer, and that stuff happens. And it wasn't mad at us, but it was just too big of a problem for me to handle. So Bill, what do you do, or what do you share with your sellers when they ask you the how long does it take question?
Quite frankly, the answer is usually it depends, right? So location, geography, facility, all of those are factors in how long it takes. Last night, I was telling you we're at the 5th District Dental Society, and on the way out there, we stopped and we got a lottery ticket when we were getting gas. The Mega Millions was $760 million.
Yeah.
And I said to Joe, I said, isn't this funny? I said, we're about to go present to a bunch of practice owners. What would be the first thing they would do if they won a lottery? And most of them said, I'd come up with a plan. I come up with a plan, right? So I think, how long it takes, it depends. It depends on the buyers in the market at the time. Again, some of those things I mentioned previously. So, make sure you give yourself enough runway in the event that it steers off path.
Yeah, I think that's really really excellent advice. And it's never too, I mean, also we'll might have sequels to this like Rocky 2, Rocky 3. Someone's gonna dress up as Mr. T for Rocky 3 for Bridge, but like you also, as someone who's
Clubber
been doing
Lang.
this,
It was Clubber Lang.
yeah, Clubber Lang.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
You also may have to sell your dental practice due to unexpected circumstances that happen to you or your family. And, while they aren't the fun ones, I call them it's a family show, but the effed up things that happen to people in life and happen to me. So you really want to be talking to people and have this, what do I do if something happens to me? Practice transition plan, whether it's injury, something like that. So I'm going to ask you, Steve, will a DSO buy my practice? And let me help you with this. I have a dental practice. I'm a solo dentist. I'm 53 years old. My practice collects 1.7 million. I have 6 operatories, and I've heard about this DSO thing. I don't know if I want to sell to one. Maybe I want to sell to a private practice buyer, but I might want to work for a little bit. Just with those general contexts, will DSO want to buy my practice?
A good friend of mine uses the term biceps and EBITDA.
Yeah, it's me, right? Oh, yeah. I have the
Oh,
shirt.
is that you?
I brought it. Yeah. I
Oh,
brought it.
well,
I
let's
brought the
talk about
shirt.
that, Paul.
Yeah.
Boy, unscripted. Look at that.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for reminding me. I brought it here just for this.
The short answer is possibly. The long answer is, why do you want to sell to a DSO, right? So there's a lot of mismanaged media, a lot of misinformation about DSOs. You hear 8, 10, 12x, and what do these numbers mean, right? If I'm a selling dentist, I want the most money I can get. But we ask the best questions. With Thad's help, he's taught us how to do that. And basically, if a dentist doesn't have the EBITDA, doesn't have the profitability, doesn't have the ability to stay on, doesn't have the ability to expand, a DSO is most usually not going to be interested in that. Will a DSO buy the practice? Perhaps, but they're looking for a very, very tight box of type of practice they want. But we're trained to help take you through that. We're going to help you. And if a DSO does want to buy your practice, our suggestion is always be, let's get several DSOs looking at your practice. And then there's a host of things that involves. Most specifically, you've got to have the facility, you've got to have the ability to stay on, and you've got to have the ability to continue working for at least 3 to 5 years to get your payout.
Yeah, I like that. I want to ask Thad for some thoughts on this comment, on this question too, but I'll just share someone's involved with this is many dentists who've worked all by themselves for 31 years have to realize that when you don't work all by yourself anymore, do you have the personality type to be able to handle that? And that has nothing to do with money and everything to do with walking into your practice and not necessarily being the head of that practice anymore. And I've seen dentists that have embraced that world well and ones that don't embrace it well. So I think that's another big factor, like you talked about, is how long do you want to work post-sale and what are those parameters going to be? That share us same thoughts. Will a DSO buy my practice, or if somebody was just happened on this right now and say, I'm thinking of a DSO or private practice sale, give them some tips on that.
Yeah, and in that situation, they probably would. With what you explained, they probably would. But I think the critical thing in this is just because you get an offer doesn't mean it's the best offer, because it's in their business to buy it at the lowest amount, and get you committed to being there. The key to a DSO transaction, because like you said, they haven't worked for somebody. As I had a dentist tell me once, I haven't had a job since I had a paper route. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have paper routes anymore, really. But but the key is structure in a DSO deal, because they may offer you a multiple of EBITDA, but none of that. There's only a certain portion of that that's really guaranteed. The rest of it you have to earn out. The rest of it has to be sold to the right person that you understand and trust. So structure is critical, and that's where we come in. We are there to help our clients. We work for the client, not for the DSO, not for the young buyer, whatever it may be. Our client is the seller. We want to make sure they understand what they're committing to, because like I said, they're going to live in that house a long time.
Yeah.
If they sell to a DSO, not 6 months or 3 months. So, and there's a lot of contingencies. Like, you're going to live in that house and you're going to have to make your bed every morning, and you're going to have to breakfast every morning. I mean, with your analogy, it's a commitment, and it can be great. I mean, we've sold practices, all the time to DSOs as a group, and there are great opportunities there. But our goal is to give options, and I would think anybody would love multiple options in anything.
And you should use this. That this is what dentists do every day. You guys have the most amazing analogy. It's like you give your patients options, whether you would give me an option to retain my tooth and maintain it, or to remove it and do an implant. Let's live in this both world here. If I can do anything as the leader of this community, is just learn about both, right? No one ever got hurt by learning about something, right? People already, I mean, they, will say, my EBITDA is not high enough. And I'll say, what's EBITDA? They go, no idea, but I know it's not high enough, right? So just learn about these things. So I love that. Rex, you kind of started off with this. So I want to give this to you. What do I tell my staff or team, right? So there's going to come a day, there are dental practice owners watching in this moment live, and there'll be ones watching on demand. And they will say, money sounds good, dentist sounds good, fit sounds good, but there's going to be that moment where I got to talk to my team about selling this practice. And for this question, make it more about a traditional private practice sale. You're going to sell to another dentist. Maybe you're going to stay on for 6 months in a like capacity or a year, not a DSO one. Tell me about telling the team. When they say, Rex, what do I tell my team?
Yeah, when do you tell your team? So we found the right buyer. We've got a great match going. We're getting through the due diligence. We're past that LOI now. We've got the attorneys working to make those purchase documents. We're going to introduce the buyer to maybe a landlord, or we're going to work around some parameters to sell the real estate along with the practice over to this buyer we've discovered. And now things are looking pretty good. And we used to be really firm that we weren't going to introduce the staff to the buyer until the deal was funded, until this transition was funded by the buyer's lender. And that's the closing. And now we're going to have a little meeting, and we're going to get the seller to bring in his staff in the waiting room. And then we're going to unveil the buyer who already owns the practice at this point. And that was a little bit too much of shock and awe, It's like, throwing a bomb off in a room here, basically, for pests, and you don't want to be in there. And so that was just too much for team members. And we've softened up a little bit. And I think most of my colleagues have a DDSmatch. And once we know that the purchase documents have been signed off on, and now it's a matter of a week or two, and we're going to be funded by the bank from that buyer, now is probably the right time. Even though, the buyer's sweet as pie, and these two get along really well, and it's going to be a great mesh with the team. I wouldn't recommend doing it any earlier than that. And certainly no longer past that funding time period either.
I have a good friend, Dr. Todd Fleischman, amazing dentist, and he, hired his first associate because I told him he needed an associate. And, he went through the whole thing, patience, but I only want to see you, Todd. I only want to see you, Todd. Well, now he's, 6 years into this process, has more than one associate. So people threaten to leave. He goes, well, if you leave, you got to see somebody new anyway. So you might as well see the person I picked, right? And I actually think that works really well for team too. It could be sold more delicately than that. But me, trusted owner of the team, if one of my team members said, Paul, I'm going to quit tomorrow, I'd say, hey, Jennifer, it's the same location. You drive up to the same place. You see the same patients. Why don't you give this person a chance? If you quit, you got to find someone new anyway. And I actually think that, I don't know, don't tell Todd, but I think that's brilliant advice. So I'm saying it behind his back for this recording. But
and maybe a couple of the other guys want to comment on that, because it is sort of an opinion.
That's a good one. So Bill, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly in alignment with Rex. I think there is a point where it's too early, but you have to be kind of down that point of no return for both parties in order to, meet staff. So again, the APA is typically that definitive document we like to see executed, and then again, a week or two, and we can make some introductions before closing.
Hey, Steve, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, and obviously, if we announce it too early to the staff, it's a distraction in the office, right? As soon as we hear the news, it's, what about me? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to like the new dentist? Is the new dentist going to like me? Are they going to change my pay? What about my PTO? What if they don't know me? And all this becomes a distraction, and that's what we're trying to avoid. By what Rex said, when we have that initial meeting with the seller, announcing softly to the staff about what's going on, we want the staff to feel that part of the value of this practice is them. We
Yeah.
talked to the seller about separating the practice between the assets and the goodwill. What is goodwill? Goodwill is the patience. Goodwill is the charts. I put the staff in that goodwill bucket too and say, look, you are the reason this practice is so successful. You are the reason these patients continue to come here. It's very, very important that you stay because you are highly valued. Up to 80% of the value of the practice is the goodwill. And I put them in that bucket and just try to calm that emotion down a little bit.
I like it. If I was giving advice to the new owner, I would like immediately implement like bagel and donut Tuesday, something the other person didn't do. And every Tuesday you bring bagels and donuts there. I can't leave now. I can't miss Donut Tuesday. I mean, that's what matters to teams. That's what matters to people is keep things the same and introduce something that they would like. And, I also share as a dentist, you guys aren't in dental offices. I am, working. Getting new team is just super difficult. It's never been more difficult for me as a practice owner. So I would work with the seller and be like, what could I do to make sure these people stay in these roles? Because people, as you know, are losing hygienists and not being able to replace them or dental assistants. So I think it's just a really important thing for everyone to be on the
And
same page.
Paul, if I could
Go
add
ahead.
one
Yeah, go
thing,
ahead, Thad.
because this is critical. Everything they said is perfect. One of the things we offer to our clients, we will be there when they tell the staff. We have a
Awesome. Yeah, I
part
like
of our,
that.
so we're happy to go there and go, hey, there's a reason he kept this from you, and it feels like a secret. Well, it's not. It's a confidential sale because the buyer is working somewhere also. So if we
Yeah.
tell you that the buyer's here, then you tell your hygienist friend who works at the office he's working at, he could get fired and he doesn't buy the practice, then he's unemployed. So we will stand there with the dentist and tell them why he did this and he or she did this. And then we can also say, we helped him in the process and he felt it was important enough to the selling dentist to hire somebody and pay someone to make sure this goes well
Yeah.
for you. And then we try and do that maybe over a lunch break. And then at the end of the day, after they've asked questions, after they've gotten over their fear a little bit, at the end of the day, they meet the buyer and it's just a softer handoff, peaceful transfer. And that's our goal.
And I'll just share as a dentist who's been through multiple transitions with the dentist, without dentist, most patients have stayed with us
Yeah.
and kept going. And then people who have left over time, sometimes it's good that they leave for a variety of reasons. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but most patients are totally willing to give you an opportunity to be their new
Same with
dentist.
staff. Same
Yeah,
with staff.
and team.
And
So I think
it's got to be delivered correctly.
yeah,
Yeah, they
when I
don't
was
want to go into a new practice and open a new door and see what's behind it. Nobody wants to do that, especially
I
when
go
it
a
comes
long way for a kind I told you so. So one of those dual rep brokers back in 2011 said to me, there's no way that person at the front desk is going to be with you more than 6 months because she's not a fit for you. And I don't think she's going to be there for more than 6 months. She was there for 7 years after the transition. I'll text her and say, see? So we're going to wrap up here in about 7 or 8 minutes. I want to give you guys some final words. There's a question, but I want to ask this to Bill here. Let's go back to this. I own a practice that does 1.4 million. I'm 59 years old, but I kind of still want to work, Bill. Like I kind of still want to work a couple days a week. I don't know if I want to hang up the handpiece. I still want to work, keep it in the private practice transition because I know the DS is like, just tell our audience about that. I kind of still want to work thoughts. What do you tell your sellers?
First and foremost, Paul, I think in that scenario, I think it's probably a smart thing if they want to de-risk the asset, right? So take some chips off the table, whether it's all of them or a portion of the value of the practice and stay on. I would ask them, you know, what type of partner is that? I would not say and suggest to go sign up for a 5 or 7 year employment agreement unless they knew who they were partner up with. And so largely it depends. You would kind of put some parameters at 1.4, but
Yeah.
when it gets lower than that, you get outside of the cash flow, it starts to get tricky.
How about Bill with just like tale as old as time as you sell to a new young buyer, but the owner wants to stay a day and a half a week. Have you seen those be successful on both sides? Is it too long for them to stay? If their stipulations are, I'll sell my practice to a young dentist, but I do want to work a day and a half a week. Is that good for the younger dentist? Is that a challenge? Are they sometimes hearing two different voices with the team? What have you seen in your transitions?
I hate to come back to it. It depends, but I often ask the owner doctor, are you employable? Right?
Yeah.
Because can you step out of the way for the buyer and let them kind of be the lead? How employable are you? I think that is a fair question. Once we have some of that information, then we'd probably, recommend that. But if not, maybe it's more of a tapered schedule and it's,
Yeah.
6 months, it's 5 days, and it goes down a month, a day a month, for the next 4 or 5 months. But um, certainly, there are a lot of ways you can structure it for sure.
Yeah, and I've been in ones where, people have stayed on 2 days a week for a period of time, but we've had a group style practice. There still has to be enough dentistry for everyone to be able to do dentistry. And I just want to let you know, the worst people to sit around and do nothing are dentists, right? So they're the literally worst people. They have nothing to offer the practice except the dentistry, right? So the sit around factor, if there's too many dentists in a practice. And then, kind of in the middle, my brother and I are technically a group practice. Sometimes we acquired practices and we wanted the seller to stay on and work because we didn't have another dentist to work at that location. So I think the dentists that are looking here, you've added some great value. There's so many different treatment plan career options. And that's the thing to talk about with you guys as early as possible. So let's kind of go to our final thoughts. Anything we missed, anything you want people to know. I want to bring up some ways for people to contact you guys. Anyone has a question in the chat, but I so appreciate what you guys have done here. It's truly been awesome to learn from experts like you. I just want to bring this one up here. Anyone who's looking to connect with our awesome partner and sponsor, DDS Match, for a complimentary call, they can text cell to 215-543-6454. Dad, if someone does this and they're 46 years old and they don't want to sell for 5 years, will they still learn something talking to you on this complimentary call? I'm assuming nothing can go wrong on the complimentary call.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and it's a big decision, and we don't take that lightly. I mean, we are all business owners. Everybody at DDS Match owns their own business, just like a dentist. So, we can empathize with what is going on, and we've got to, do the things you have to do too. But as a dentist, I don't see there's any negative, just because we want to have a relationship in this process, because it does take time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of trust. And we would love to start as early as possible and make sure that those decisions leading up to that day are in line with.
And I learned something at your DDS Match great group presentation this year. You need to also have your finances in order, because if you think your practice is going to fund your retirement and your financial planner says, hey, guess what? It's not going to do the thing you want it to do. You may need to readjust your timeline. So I think that's even more of an important reason.
And we've got connections to help that too, that are complementary, to make sure that a second opinion, we joke, like a discount double check,
I like that.
Arm. Yeah. So if they want a double check on the person they're working with, we've got some options there too.
I just want to share my personal cell phone. I'm a big fan of friends in your phone. You guys are all friends in my phone. We can text, we can joke about sports, talk about practices. People can text me at 267-896-1942. Anyone here watching live or on demand, I would love to be your friend in your phone. So when we take a look at this here, what are your final thoughts? Is there anything, I want to bring up our other Canva here. Is there anything you guys would like to share that I missed? Something you want to reinforce? Kind of your final 60 seconds, and they will conclude the webinar. So I will start with you, Rex. Final words from Rex.
Yeah, I just would want to remind people that it all starts with a conversation, a private conversation about their future plans and goals. And that's really how we really input our services, our tools, and our partners to go to work to bring you to your goals and plans that are in front of you, to transition you on your terms out of your practice. And I think that's probably the most important piece, because that's the framework of everything we do.
I love that. On your terms should be a big thing, because we say that to patients all the time. You want to do this crown on your terms, not when it breaks before your vacation to France. So you want to transition on your terms. I love that. Steve, how about you? Final words.
Yeah, real quick. And again, thank you for this opportunity. It's been great. I would tell you that dentists hire us at DDS Match for 3 reasons. Number one is the expertise we bring to the table. We've talked about some of that today. Most of us have been working with dentists like you for anywhere between 20 and 30 years. I'm 10 years as a professional practice broker, and the expertise we bring to the table is unmatched. Secondly, we talked about this today, is the confidentiality, how important that is. And the third thing is the process. We know that dentists are process-minded people. From greeting the new patient to taking them through a treatment plan to doing the work, we work in the same similar process, taking you from the idea of selling a practice to closing day. So we feel like we mirror that with you, and those are reasons why dentists hire us at DDS Match.
I love that, Steve. I mean, you guys are a big part of people's lives because people remember who was there when they made the biggest decisions in their life, personally and professionally. I think that's awesome. Bill, how about you?
You know, I would probably say, Paul, that most sellers, when they see us, or practice owners, when they see us at an event, or we're sponsoring a table, sometimes they're afraid to come up to us,
Yeah.
right? And it's often because they associate talking to us with selling their practice and or retirement. And I don't really think that that's the case. It's more so, the transition is not the transaction. So there's a lot of front
I
end
like
work,
that.
a lot of planning. And I think if I were to leave you with one thing, it's that as the practice owner, you're in total control, especially with us. So
Yeah,
you're in control, you have options, and we'll make sure that you are aware of what those options look like.
I love that. That was a
Awesome.
great line there. Thad, you can kind of bring us home with final words from you for this webinar.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest word in this whole process is trust. And I think that when you find somebody that you want to work with, make sure you can trust them. And then what you're selling in a transition or a transaction is trust, because
Yeah.
as Steve referenced earlier, it's goodwill. So, it's in our best interest to be as transparent as possible in our process, the trusted transition process, to show a buyer this can be their future, and
Yeah.
and it can work for them when they're starting their own business, essentially.
Well, I appreciate what you guys do. I mean, to me, what this is, the four biggest decisions: finding a job, buying a practice, hiring an associate, selling your practice. That fourth one is so key for your legacy, for how you feel about dentistry, transition on your own terms. So I thank you guys for being awesome sponsors and resources. Stick around for a minute. We had so many people watching in, and we'll get this recorded. You guys, truly grateful for what you do.
Thanks for having us, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Paul.